Captain Lee Dae-ho stared at the endless black space through the bridge window of the transport ship Persistence. Stars dotted the darkness like tiny diamonds scattered on black cloth. He had been making supply runs for 20 years, and the view never got old. Behind him, the bridge hummed with quiet activity as his crew worked at their stations. "Captain, we are 2 hours from Kepler 442b, said Navigator Choi Min-ho from his position at the control panel. His voice was calm and steady as always. Min-ho never got excited about anything, which made him perfect for long space flights. "Good. The miners will be happy to see us," Lee replied. He turned away from the window and walked to his captain's chair. The leather was worn and comfortable after so many years of use. "Kim So-ra, how are our systems running?" Engineer Kim So-ra looked up from her console. She was young, maybe 25, but she knew the Persistence better than anyone. "All systems normal, Captain. The cargo bay is secure and the life support is running at 98% efficiency." "And our medical supplies?" Lee asked. "All checked and ready," came the voice of Medical Officer Park Jin-woo from the communications system. He was down in the medical bay doing his usual inventory. Jin-woo was careful about everything, which had saved many lives over the years. Lee nodded and settled into his chair. This was just another routine supply run to the mining colony. The Persistence was not a warship or an exploration vessel. It was a simple transport ship that carried food, medicine, and equipment to human settlements across this part of the galaxy. Lee and his crew were good at their job, but nobody important ever noticed them. That was how things worked in the Galactic Federation. Humans had joined 50 years ago, but they were still treated like the new kids in school. The other alien species had better technology, stronger bodies, and faster ships. Humans got the boring jobs that nobody else wanted to do. They delivered supplies, cleaned space stations, and filled out paperwork. It was not glamorous work, but it was honest work. "Captain," So-ra called out suddenly. Her voice had changed from relaxed to concerned. "I am picking up a distress signal." Lee sat up straight in his chair. "Put it through the speakers." The bridge, filled with crackling static and broken words. "Unknown hostiles. Shields failing. Require immediate assistance. This is Vorlan Research Station Alpha. Anyone who receives this message." The signal cut to static and then silence. Lee felt his stomach tighten. The Vorlan Research Station was supposed to be one of the most secure facilities in this sector. The Vorlans were an advanced alien species with technology that made human. Equipment looked like stone tools. If they were calling for help, something was very wrong. "Min-ho, what is our distance to the Vorlan station?" Lee asked. The navigator's fingers moved quickly over his controls. 6 hours at maximum speed, Captain." "So-ra, can you clean up that signal? Get me more information." The young engineer worked at her console, her face serious with concentration. "The signal is very weak, Captain. It looks like it was sent on an emergency frequency. The timestamp shows it was transmitted 4 hours ago." Lee stood up and began pacing behind his chair. 4 hours ago. That meant whatever was happening at the station had been going on for a while. "Any word from Federation Command?" "Checking now," So-ra replied. Her fingers moved across the communication controls. "Captain, I am not getting any response from Federation Command. It looks like they have not received the distress signal yet. We might be the only ship in range." Park Jin-woo's voice came through the communication system. "Captain, I just checked the Federation database. The nearest military vessels are the 7th Fleet, but they are 3 weeks away at minimum speed." 3 weeks. Lee stopped pacing and stared at the floor. By the time proper help arrived, everyone at the research station would be dead. Federation protocol was clear about situations like this. Support vessels like the Persistence were supposed to relay distress signals to military command and wait for orders. They were not supposed to respond to dangerous situations themselves, but Lee had been in space long enough to know that protocol did not always match reality. Sometimes you had to make hard choices. "Captain," Min-ho said quietly. "What are your orders?" Lee looked around the bridge at his crew. So-ra was watching him with bright, intelligent eyes. Min-ho sat calmly at his station, ready to follow whatever orders he gave. Through the communication system, he could hear Jin-woo moving around in the medical bay, preparing for whatever might come next. These were good people. They trusted him to make the right decision. But what was the right decision? If he followed protocol, people would die. If he ignored protocol, he might be putting his own crew in danger for nothing. So, Ra, what do we know about the Vorlan research station? Lee asked. It is a high-security facility that studies dangerous alien artifacts, she replied. The station has shields that can stop a small fleet and defensive weapons that could destroy most ships. It also has a garrison of Vorlan military personnel. And someone or something got through all of that, Lee said quietly. He thought about the Vorlans he had met over the years. They were proud, advanced, and very sure of their own superiority. They looked at humans the way humans might look at helpful pets. If the Vorlans were asking for help from anyone who could hear them, they must be desperate. Captain, Sora said softly, the Persistence is not a military vessel. We have basic shields and no weapons except for some emergency mining charges in the cargo bay. I know what we are, Lee replied, but we are also the only help those people are going to get. He made his decision. Minho, set course for the Vorlan research station. Maximum speed. Yes, Captain. Sora, send a message to Federation Command. Tell them we received a distress signal from the Vorlan station and are responding. Include all the data we have. Right away, Captain. Jinwoo, prepare the medical bay for casualties. We might be bringing back wounded. Understood, Captain. As the Persistence changed course and accelerated toward the unknown danger, Lee felt the familiar weight of command on his shoulders. He had made thousands of decisions during his career, but this one felt different. This one might change everything. The stars outside the bridge window looked the same as always, but Lee knew they were heading into something that would test them all. Whatever had attacked the Vorlan research station was powerful enough to threaten one of the most advanced species in the galaxy. Soon, a simple human transport crew would find out if they had what it took to face that kind of threat. The Persistence flew through the silent void toward an uncertain fate, carrying 4 humans, who were about to discover that sometimes the galaxy needed exactly what they had to offer. 6 hours later, the Persistence dropped out of hyperspace near the Vorlan research station. What Captain Lee Dae-ho saw through the bridge window made his blood run cold. 12 massive Vorlan warships floated in space around the station like dead fish in a pond. Each ship was 3 times the size of the Persistence and armed with weapons that could destroy entire cities. Now they drifted silent and dark against the stars. My God, whispered Engineer Kim So-ra from her station. What could do that to a Vorlan fleet? Navigator Choi Min-ho checked his sensors carefully. Captain, I am reading no life signs from any of the warships. They appear to be completely dead. No power, no movement, nothing. Lee stared at the floating graveyard. The Vorlan fleet was supposed to be one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. Their ships had shields that could resist nuclear weapons, and armor that could survive direct hits from asteroid impacts. Seeing them destroyed so completely was like watching mountains crumble into dust. What about the research station itself? Lee asked. The station is still there, but barely, Sora replied. She studied her readings with growing concern. Life. Support is failing in most sections. I am detecting some survivors in the medical bay area, but not many. Any sign of whatever attacked them? Minho worked at his scanner controls. Negative, Captain. I see debris from the Vorlan ships and some strange energy readings, but no hostile vessels. Medical Officer Park Jin-woo's voice came through the communication system from below. Captain, if there are survivors on that station, they will not last much longer without help. Life support systems are critical. Lee made his decision quickly. Minho, take us in slowly. Sora, scan for any threats. Jin-woo, get your medical kit ready for emergency treatment. The Persistence moved carefully toward the research station. The station was huge, bigger than most cities, but it looked like it had been through a war. Sections of the outer hull were torn open like someone had used giant claws to rip them apart. Emergency lights flickered weakly in the darkness. Captain, I am getting a weak signal from inside the station, Sora reported. Someone is trying to communicate with us. Put it through. A weak voice filled the bridge, speaking accented English. Unknown vessel, this is Dr. Yoon Hae-jin. I am trapped in Medical Bay 7 with several wounded Vorlan personnel. Please respond if you can hear this. Lee felt a moment of relief. Dr. Yoon was human, which meant at least one person on the station spoke their language. Dr. Yoon, this is Captain Lee of the transport vessel Persistence. We received your distress signal and have come to help. What is your situation? Captain Lee, thank the stars you are here. The relief in Dr. Yoon's voice was clear even through the static. We have been under attack by entities we cannot identify. They appeared 6 hours ago and destroyed our entire defense fleet in minutes. Most of the station crew is dead or missing. What kind of entities? Can you describe them? There was a pause before Dr. Yoon answered. We call them devourers, Captain. They are machines, but unlike any technology in our databases, they seem to consume both organic matter and technological components. Our weapons had no effect on them. Sora looked up from her console with worry in her eyes. Machines that could destroy Vorlan technology and eat both metal and flesh sounded like something from a nightmare. Dr. Yoon, we are going to dock with the station and get you out of there, Lee said. How many survivors are with you? 8, including myself. 3 humans and 5 Vorlans. Commander Thexaval is here, but he is badly wounded. Lee knew that name. Commander Thexaval was a famous Vorlan military leader who had fought in dozens of battles across the galaxy. If he was wounded and hiding in a medical bay, these devourers must be incredibly dangerous. We are coming to get you, Lee said. Stay where you are and keep this channel open. The Persistence attached to one of the station's docking ports with a soft thud. Lee, Sora, and Jin-Woo put on their emergency suits and grabbed their equipment. Minho stayed on the bridge to monitor the situation and be ready for a quick escape if needed. The airlock opened with a hiss, and they stepped into the research station. The corridors were dark except for emergency lighting that cast strange shadows on the walls. The air smelled of burning electronics and something else that made Lee's stomach turn. This way, Sora said, checking her handheld scanner. Medical. Bay 7 is 3 levels down. They moved quickly through the corridors, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Jin-Woo carried his medical bag and emergency supplies. Sora had her engineering tools and a portable scanner. Lee carried the only weapon they had, a simple projectile pistol that used chemical charges to fire metal bullets. As they walked, they saw signs of the attack everywhere. Walls were torn open as if something had simply walked through them. Expensive Vorlon equipment lay scattered and broken on the floor. In some places, there were dark stains that Lee preferred not to think about too carefully. Captain, Sora whispered. Look at this. She pointed to a section of wall that had been torn apart. The metal edges were smooth and clean, as if they had been melted rather than cut. But more disturbing were the strange patterns carved into the remaining metal, like flowing script in an unknown language. The Devourers did this? Lee asked. I think so. The metal has been analyzed and partially absorbed. Whatever did this was learning from the station's technology as it destroyed it. They reached Medical Bay 7 and found the door sealed shut. Lee knocked in the pattern Dr. Yoon had given them over the radio. After a moment, the door opened to reveal a middle-aged Korean woman in a torn lab coat. Dr. Yoon? Lee asked. Yes, Captain Lee. Please come in quickly. They entered the medical bay to find a scene of controlled chaos. 3 other humans worked to treat 5 wounded Vorlans lying on medical beds. The largest Vorlan, wearing the uniform of a high-ranking military officer, was conscious but clearly in pain. Commander Thexval, Lee said, approaching the wounded alien. I am Captain Lee. We are here to help. The Vorlan commander looked at Lee with eyes that showed both pain and something that might have been embarrassment. Vorlans were tall, blue-skinned humanoids with 4 arms and faces that reminded Lee of noble birds of prey. Commander Thexaval was clearly used to being in command, but now he was helpless and dependent on others for survival. Captain Lee, the commander said in careful English, I must thank you for coming, though I fear you have arrived only to share our fate. Your small vessel cannot hope to succeed where our fleet failed. What exactly happened here? Lee asked. Dr. Yoon answered while Jin-Woo began examining the wounded. The Devourers appeared without warning 6 hours ago. They ignored our hails and immediately began attacking our defense fleet. Our ships tried to fight back, but their weapons seemed to have no effect. The Devourers absorbed the energy from our particle beams and plasma cannons and became stronger. Then they came for the station, Commander Thexval continued. They moved through our shields as if they were not there. Our defensive systems could not even slow them down. They began systematically harvesting both our personnel and our technology. Sora was scanning the room with her equipment. Captain, I am detecting strange energy signatures throughout the station. It looks like the Devourers left some kind of monitoring devices behind. Are they still here? Lee asked. I do not think so, Dr. Yoon replied. They left about 2 hours ago, heading toward the core Federation worlds. But, Captain, there is something else you need to know. We managed to scan them during the attack. The Devourers are not just destroying our technology, they are learning from it. Each time we used a weapon against them, they adapted and became immune to it. They are evolving. Lee felt ice in his stomach. Machines that could learn and adapt were dangerous enough, but machines that were heading toward the most populated systems in the galaxy were a threat to every living being in known space. How long before they reach the core worlds? He asked. Commander Thexval struggled to sit up on his medical bed. At their current speed, perhaps 4 days. The Federation fleet cannot possibly assemble a defense in time, and even if they could, our weapons are useless against these entities. The medical bay fell silent, except for the hum of life support and the quiet sounds of Jinwoo treating the wounded. Lee looked around at the survivors, 3 species working together in the face of extinction. For the first time in his career, he was facing a problem that seemed impossible to solve. But as he watched his crew work alongside the Vorlans and Dr. Yoon, Lee began to think that maybe impossible problems needed impossible solutions. Back aboard the Persistence, the survivors from the research station crowded into the ship's small medical bay. Medical Officer Park Jin-woo worked steadily to treat the wounded Vorlans, while Dr. Yoon Hae-jin helped translate between species. Captain Lee Dae-ho stood in the corridor outside, thinking hard about their situation. Engineer Kim So-ra approached him with a data pad in her hands. Her face showed the kind of concentration she got when working on complex problems. Captain, I have been studying the sensor data from the station. I think I found something important. What did you find? The Devourers have a pattern to how they adapt to new technology. When the Vorlans first fired particle beams at them, it took exactly 4 minutes and 42 seconds before the Devourers became immune. When they tried plasma cannons, it took 4 minutes and 38 seconds. The adaptation time is always between 4 and 5 minutes. Lee felt a spark of hope. So there is a delay in their learning process? Exactly. And there is something else. Sora pulled up another screen on her data pad. The Devourers seem to have trouble with redundant systems. Look at this data from the station's backup power grid. The Devourers absorbed the main power systems quickly, but they struggled with the emergency backups. They kept trying to process systems that were essentially copies of each other. Navigator Choi Min-ho joined them in the corridor. Captain, I have been thinking about the attack patterns Dr. Yoon described. The Devourers used very efficient tactics, like they were programmed to find the fastest way to disable their targets. But what if we do not fight efficiently? Lee raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Human military history is full of victories that came from doing unexpected things, Min-ho explained. We have always been good at fighting dirty when we had to. Maybe that is what we need here. From the medical bay came the voice of Commander Thexval. The Vorlan officer had insisted on joining their discussion despite his injuries. Captain, Lee, with respect, your species lacks the advanced technology necessary to fight these entities. Your weapons are primitive chemical projectiles, and your ships have basic armor. How can such simple tools succeed where our most advanced systems failed? Sora looked thoughtful. Maybe that is exactly the point, Commander. The Devourers are designed to absorb and counter advanced technology. But what if we use technology that is so basic they cannot understand it? Lee began pacing in the narrow corridor. Sora, what kind of basic technology are we talking about? Chemical explosives, ballistic projectiles, analog electronics, even manual mechanical systems. Things the galaxy stopped using centuries ago. Because they were inefficient. Dr. Yoon emerged from the medical bay, wiping her hands on a towel. Captain, there is something else you should know. I studied the Devourer remains we found on the station. Their adaptive systems seem to work by analyzing the energy signatures and technological principles of weapons used against them. But they have difficulty categorizing truly primitive technologies. A new voice joined the conversation. Maybe we can help with that. It was Petty Officer Kang Soo-bin, a young engineering specialist who had been working in the cargo bay. She was small and quiet, but Lee knew she had a talent for solving problems in unusual ways. What do you have in mind, Subin? Lee asked. Captain, we have mining charges in our cargo bay. They are simple chemical explosives designed to break apart asteroids. We also have magnetic rail launchers for moving heavy cargo. What if we combine them? Sora's eyes lit up with understanding. You want to make a primitive projectile weapon system? Exactly. No energy signatures for the Devourers to analyze, no advanced targeting systems to adapt to, just chemical explosives and metal projectiles moving very fast. Commander Thexval made a sound that might have been Vorlan laughter. You wish to fight advanced alien machines with rocks and primitive bombs? Not just rocks, said Lieutenant Ryu Dong-hyun as he joined the group. Ryu was their security officer, a quiet man who spoke little but thought constantly about tactical problems. Captain, I have been reviewing human military history in the database. We have always been good at asymmetric warfare, using unexpected tactics, redundant systems, and what other species call wasteful resource allocation. Wasteful how? Dr. Yoon asked. We use backup systems for our backup systems. We build things that work even when half the components fail. We plan for situations that probably will never happen. Other species call it inefficient, but it makes our systems very hard to predict or counter. Lee felt ideas beginning to form in his mind. Sora, how quickly can we modify our cargo systems into weapons? Give me 6 hours and I can turn our magnetic rail launchers into projectile weapons. Subin can prepare the mining charges as ammunition. They will not be elegant, but they should work. Do it. Ryu, I want you to think about tactics. How do we fight an enemy that adapts to everything we do? We do not give them time to adapt, Ryu replied immediately. We hit them with multiple different attacks in rapid succession, chemical explosives, kinetic projectiles, electromagnetic pulses from our communication array, even ramming attacks if necessary. Each attack will be different enough that they cannot adapt to all of them in time. Commander Thexval struggled to his feet, supported by one of his officers. Captain Lee, even if your primitive weapons work initially, the Devourers will eventually adapt, and there are hundreds of them heading for the core worlds. Your single ship cannot hope to stop them all. You are right, Commander. We cannot stop them all. Lee paused and looked around at his crew and the survivors. But we can learn how to fight them, and we can teach others. Over the next several hours, the Persistence became a workshop of organized chaos. Sora and Subin worked to convert cargo equipment into weapon systems. Ryu studied tactical manuals and planned attack patterns that violated every principle of efficient warfare. Jinwoo prepared medical supplies for the wounded and researched devourer biology from the scanner data. Minho plotted courses through asteroid fields and debris zones where conventional ships would never go. Dr. Yoon helped coordinate between the human crew and the Vorlan survivors, translating not just languages but different ways of thinking about problems. Captain, Sora called from the cargo bay, the weapons are ready. They are ugly and inefficient, but they should work. Lee went to inspect their work. The cargo bay now contained several magnetic rail launchers that had been modified to fire mining charges and metal projectiles. The targeting systems were purely manual, operated by human eyes and hands rather than computer guidance. How do we test them? Lee asked. There, Minho said, pointing to his scanner display. 3 Devourer scouts are approaching from the edge of the system. They must have detected our presence. Lee felt his heart rate increase. This would be their first real test against the entities that had destroyed a Vorlan fleet. All crew, to battle stations. Subin, load the weapons. Ryu, are you ready with the tactical plan? Ready, Captain. Commander Thexval, you might want to see this. The Vorlan commander made his way to the bridge, still weak from his injuries but determined to witness what would happen next. Captain Lee, I hope you understand that if this fails, we will all die. I understand, Commander. But if we do nothing, everyone in the galaxy will die. The 3 Devourer scouts appeared on the view screen as dark shapes moving against the stars. They were roughly the same size as the Persistence, but moved with an alien grace that made Lee's skin crawl. As they approached, the scouts began scanning the human ship with energy beams. They are trying to analyze our systems, Sora reported. Just like they did with the Vorlan ships. Let them scan, Lee said. Ryu, execute the plan. The first attack came from an unexpected angle. Instead of using their modified weapons immediately, Ryu had Minho pilot the ship through the debris field from the destroyed Vorlan fleet. When the Devourers followed, the Persistence suddenly reversed course and fired a spread of mining charges from their improvised launchers. The chemical explosives detonated against the lead Devourer scout in a series of bright flashes. The alien machine seemed confused by the attack, its sensors unable to categorize weapons that had no energy signature beyond simple chemical reactions. "Direct hit," Sora reported with excitement. "The first scout is damaged and trying to analyze what we used against it." 4 minutes until they adapt, Lee said, watching the timer on his screen. "Hit them with everything else." The Persistence fired metal projectiles from the rail launchers while broadcasting electromagnetic pulses from their communication array. The attacks were crude and inefficient by galactic standards, but they worked. The second Devourer scout was disabled by kinetic impacts while the third struggled to adapt to multiple simultaneous attack types. 2 minutes remaining, Sora called out. "Ram the third one," Lee ordered. Minho did not hesitate. The Persistence accelerated directly toward the remaining Devourer scout and struck it with their reinforced cargo bay doors. The impact sent both ships spinning, but the human ship's redundant systems kept it functional while the Devourer was crushed by the collision. "All 3 scouts destroyed," Ryu reported with satisfaction. Commander Thexaval stared at the view screen in amazement. "Captain Lee, your tactics should not have worked. They violated every principle of space combat." The emergency transmission from the Persistence spread through Federation communication networks like wildfire. Captain Lee Dae-ho's message was simple but shocking. Humans had found a way to fight the Devourers. Within hours, every major military command in the galaxy was studying the tactical data from their battle with the scout ships. But time was running out. Long-range sensors showed the main Devourer fleet approaching the core worlds, hundreds of entities moving through space like a dark tide of destruction. The Federation's fastest ships were still 2 days away from intercept position, and even then, they would need time to retrofit their systems with human-designed weapons. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the Persistence, staring at the tactical display. The ship floated in the Kronos asteroid field, surrounded by millions of rocks and debris from ancient cosmic collisions. It was exactly where he wanted to be. "Captain," Engineer Kim Sora said from her station, "I am receiving transmission from Federation Command. Admiral Kethtar wants to speak with you directly." Lee nodded. Admiral Kethtar was a Zenthari, one of the most respected military leaders in the galaxy. If he was calling personally, the situation must be worse than Lee had thought. The view screen activated to show the insectoid features of the Zenthari Admiral. His 4 eyes focused on Lee with an intensity that made the human captain feel like he was being examined under a microscope. "Captain Lee," the Admiral said in his clicking voice, "your tactical data has been distributed to all Federation forces. We are attempting to retrofit our weapons systems based on your recommendations, but we need more time." "How much more time, Admiral?" "Minimum 6 hours to reach intercept position. Another 12 hours to complete weapons modifications. The Devourer fleet will reach Earth and the core worlds in 18 hours. Lee felt his stomach drop. Earth was home to 8 billion humans, and the core worlds contained another 20 billion beings from dozens of species. If the Devourers reached them, it would be the largest mass extinction in galactic history. "Admiral, what if we could delay the Devourer fleet? Give you the time you need?" The Zenthari's compound eyes shifted in what Lee recognized as surprise. "Captain, your ship cannot hope to stop hundreds of Devourers. The tactical data shows you defeated 3 scouts through surprise and unconventional weapons. A direct confrontation with the main fleet would be suicide. Maybe not stop them, but slow them down. Make them waste time adapting to new tactics." Before Admiral Kethtar could respond, Commander Thexaval stepped into view of the communication. "Pickup." The Vorlan officer was still weak from his injuries, but his voice was strong. "Admiral Kethtar, I have witnessed these humans in action. Their tactical approach is unlike anything in our military doctrine. They may be able to accomplish what conventional forces cannot." The Admiral considered this for a moment. "Captain Lee, what do you propose?" Lee looked around the bridge at his crew. Navigator Choi Minho sat calmly at his station, ready to follow any order. Sora worked at her engineering console, already planning modifications to their improvised weapons. Through the communication system, he could hear Medical Officer Park Jin-woo and the other survivors preparing for what was to come. "We are going to use the Kronos asteroid field as a trap," Lee said. "The Devourers move through space efficiently, following direct routes to their targets. But what if we force them to enter an environment where efficiency is a disadvantage?" "Explain." "Asteroids move unpredictably. Debris fields require constant course corrections. And we have seeded this entire region with improvised weapons and traps. When the Devourers enter the field, they will have to deal with multiple simultaneous problems while adapting to human tactics." Admiral Kethtar's eyes clicked as he processed this information. "Captain, even if your plan succeeds in delaying them, you will not survive the encounter. Hundreds of Devourers will eventually overwhelm your single ship. That is a risk we are willing to take, Admiral." The communication channel was quiet for a long moment. Then Admiral Kethtar spoke again, his voice filled with something that might have been respect. "Captain Lee, I am transmitting the latest Federation fleet positions to your ship. When you engage the Devourers, every ship in the galaxy will be watching. Your sacrifice will be remembered." After the transmission ended, Lee turned to address his crew and the survivors. "Everyone listen carefully. In 12 hours, the Devourer fleet will enter this asteroid field. We are going to be here waiting for them." Lieutenant Ryu Dong-hyun stepped forward. "Captain, I have finished the tactical preparations. We have positioned improvised mines throughout the field, and I have identified choke points where we can force the Devourers into unfavorable positions. Sora, what about our weapons systems? I have tripled our ammunition production and installed backup launchers in case our primary systems are destroyed. We also have ramming charges prepared for close-quarters combat." Petty Officer Kang Subin raised her hand. "Captain, I have been working with Dr. Yoon on something special. We call it the Chaos Protocol." Dr. Yoon Hae-jin smiled grimly. "We have programmed our ship's systems to operate in the most inefficient way possible. Random course changes, redundant communications, overlapping shield frequencies. The idea is to create so much electronic noise that the Devourers cannot focus their adaptation process." Commander Thexval listened to these preparations with growing amazement. "Captain Lee, your entire battle plan is based on doing everything wrong by conventional military standards." "Exactly, Commander. The Devourers expect their enemies to fight logically and efficiently. We are going to fight like humans." The next 12 hours passed quickly as the crew made final preparations. Minho plotted escape routes through the asteroid field, though everyone knew they probably would not need them. Jinwoo treated the wounded and prepared medical supplies for the battle ahead. Sora worked with Subin to create as many improvised weapons as possible. When the Devourer fleet finally appeared on long-range sensors, it was both exactly what Lee had expected and more terrifying than he had imagined. Hundreds of dark shapes moved through space in perfect formation, their alien geometry making them look like predatory fish swimming through an ocean of stars. "They are beautiful in a way," Dr. Yoon observed quietly. "Beautiful and deadly," Commander Thexval added. "Captain, are you certain about this plan?" Lee checked the tactical display one more time. The Federation fleet was still hours away. Earth and the core worlds lay helpless beyond the asteroid field. This was humanity's moment to prove that sometimes courage and creativity could overcome. "Superior technology. All stations, prepare for battle," Lee announced. "Minho, take us into the field. Sora, activate the Chaos Protocol. Ryu, begin the harassment pattern." The Persistence moved deeper into the asteroid field, using the rocks for cover as the Devourer fleet approached. When the first entities entered the field, they immediately encountered problems. The asteroids forced them to break formation and navigate carefully, slowing their advance. "First contact in 30 seconds, Ryu reported. "Remember the plan," Lee said. "Hit them with everything we have, but never the same thing twice. Keep them guessing." The battle began with a spread of mining charges detonating among the lead Devourers. As the entities tried to analyze the chemical explosions, the Persistence fired kinetic projectiles from a different angle. When they adapted to the metal slugs, electromagnetic pulses disrupted their sensors. "They are getting confused," Sora reported with excitement. "The Chaos Protocol is working. They cannot focus their adaptation process." For 2 hours, the small human ship played a deadly game of hide-and-seek among the asteroids. Every time, the Devourers began to adapt to one tactic. The humans switched to something completely different. Chemical weapons gave way to kinetic attacks, which gave way to ramming maneuvers, which gave way to electronic warfare. But there were too many of them. Slowly, inevitably, the Devourers began to surround the Persistence. Lee counted at least 50 entities closing in on their position, with hundreds more moving through the field. "Captain," Minho said calmly, "we are almost out of asteroids to hide behind. And we are down to our last ammunition reserves," Sora added. Lee looked around the bridge at his crew. They had fought longer and harder than anyone had thought possible, but the end was approaching. "How much longer until the Federation fleet arrives?" 47 minutes, Ryu replied. Lee made his final decision. "All hands, prepare for ramming. Speed! We are going to take as many of them with us as we can." But before Minho could engage the engines, Sora shouted from her station, "Captain, new contacts on sensors. Multiple Federation ships dropping out of hyperspace." The view screen filled with the most beautiful sight Lee had ever seen. Dozens of Federation warships appeared around the asteroid field, their weapons already modified with human-designed systems. Leading them was the massive Zenthari dreadnought Inevitable Justice, Admiral Kethtar's flagship. "All Federation ships, this is Admiral Kethtar," came the voice over the communication system. "Implement human tactical protocols immediately. Show these machines how the galaxy fights when it fights like humans." The final battle for the Kronos system had begun, and for the first time, the galaxy was fighting with human tactics. The tide was about to turn. 6 months after the Battle of Kronos, Captain Lee Dae-ho stood in the Great Assembly Hall of the Federation Council on the planet Galactia Prime. The massive chamber held representatives from hundreds of worlds, their varied forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes under the crystal dome ceiling. Lee felt very small in his simple dress uniform, but he was not alone. Engineer Kim So-ra stood to his right, wearing the new insignia of a senior systems designer. Medical Officer Park Jinwoo was on his left, now bearing the rank of Director of Emergency Medical Protocols. Navigator Choi Min-ho stood behind them, quietly proud in his new position as Chief Navigation Instructor at the Federation Military Academy. Before them, the Federation Council had assembled to witness something that had never happened before in galactic history. A human was about to receive the Star of Galactic Valor, the highest honor the Federation could bestow. Chancellor Vextari, an ancient Quillan whose crystalline features sparkled in the chamber's light, spoke in the musical tones of her species. "Captain Lee Dae-ho of the Human Federation, you stand before this assembly not as a representative of a support species, but as the being who saved our galaxy from extinction." Lee looked up at the thousands of faces watching him. 6 months. Ago, most of these beings would barely have noticed a human transport captain. Now they were gathered to honor his crew's actions at Kronos. The irony was not lost on him. The Battle of Kronos proved that the galaxy had been measuring strength by the wrong standards, the Chancellor continued. "We valued efficiency over adaptability, perfection over resilience, and advancement over wisdom. Humanity taught us that sometimes the best solutions come from the most unexpected sources." In the gallery above, Lee could see Commander Thexval wearing the ceremonial robes of a Federation strategic advisor. The Vorlan officer caught Lee's eye and nodded with respect. Next to him sat Dr. Yoon Hai-jin, now head of the newly established Human Strategic Institute. The ceremony proceeded, with formal speeches from various council members, each praising the human contribution to galactic defense. But Lee's mind wandered to the real changes that had happened since Kronos. Every major Federation vessel now carried human tactical advisors. The rigid military doctrines that had dominated galactic warfare for centuries were being rewritten to include inefficient human approaches. Redundant systems, backup plans for backup plans, and controlled chaos theory were now taught at military academies across the galaxy. Most importantly, humanity's role in the Federation had changed completely. No longer were they relegated to support duties and menial labor. Human engineers were redesigning ship systems throughout the fleet. Human doctors were developing new treatment protocols that worked across species lines. Human navigators were finding new routes through space that conventional wisdom said were impossible. Captain Lee, Chancellor Vexitari said, bringing his attention back to the ceremony, will you accept the Star of Galactic Valor on behalf of your crew and your species? I will, Chancellor, but with one condition. A murmur ran through the assembly. It was not customary to place conditions on accepting such an honor. What condition do you request? The Chancellor asked. That this honor be shared equally among all the crew of the Persistence and all the survivors who fought alongside us. We succeeded not because any one of us was special, but because we worked together. Chancellor Vextari's crystalline features shifted in what Lee had learned was a Quillan smile. Your condition is accepted, Captain. The record will show that this honor belongs to all who stood against the darkness at Kronos. As the ceremony concluded and the assembly began to disperse, Lee found himself surrounded by representatives from dozens of species. Each wanted to speak with the human captain who had changed everything. A young Xanthari officer approached, her insectoid features bright with excitement. Captain Lee, I am studying human tactical methods at the Academy. Could you explain how you knew the Chaos Protocol would work against the Devourers? Lee smiled. I did not know it would work. We just tried everything we could think of and hoped something would stick. The officer looked confused. But surely you had complex calculations and strategic analysis. Sometimes the best strategy is not having a strategy, Lee replied. When you do not know what you are going to do next, your enemy cannot predict it either. As the crowd gradually thinned, Lee found himself alone with his crew and the other survivors from the research station. Commander Thexaval approached them, moving slowly due to his still-healing injuries. Captain Lee, the Vorlan said formally, I owe you an apology. For what, Commander? For my assumptions about your species. I believed that military strength came from superior technology and advanced tactics. You showed me that true strength comes from the willingness to keep fighting even when logic says you should surrender. Dr. Yoon stepped forward. Commander, we all learned something at Kronos. The galaxy is stronger when every species contributes their unique strengths instead of trying to fit into the same mold. Speaking of contributions, Sora interjected, I have something to show you all. She activated a holographic display that showed technical schematics for a new class of Federation starship. The design incorporated human redundancy principles with alien advanced technology, creating vessels that were both powerful and resilient. The first ships of this class will launch next month, Sora explained. They are calling them the Persistence-class cruisers. Lee felt a warm glow of pride. The little transport ship that had started this adventure would be remembered in the name of an entire fleet. Petty Officer Kang Subin, now wearing the rank insignia of a chief engineer, grinned widely. Captain, there is something else. The Federation has asked us to form a new division, the Adaptive Tactics Corps. They want us to train other species in human-style problem-solving. What did you tell them? Lee asked. That we would be honored to try, Lieutenant Ryu Dong-hyun replied, though I warned them that our methods might seem strange to beings used to following strict protocols. 3 hours later, Lee stood alone, on the observation deck of the Federation Council building, looking out at the sprawling city below. Ships from hundreds of worlds filled the sky, their varied designs reflecting the diversity of galactic civilization. His communicator chimed with an incoming message. The display showed it was from Admiral Kethtar aboard the Federation flagship. Captain Lee, the Xanthari's voice came through clearly. I wanted to inform you personally that we have received another distress signal from the Galactic Rim. Unknown. Hostiles attacking a colony world. The description matches no known species in our databases. Lee felt a familiar stirring in his chest. Another crisis. Another impossible situation that would require creative solutions. Admiral, does the Federation have ships in position to respond? We do, Captain. An entire task force equipped with human-designed systems and trained in adaptive tactics. But we would like to request that you and your crew serve as strategic advisors for the mission. Lee looked out at the stars and thought about all the changes that had come from one simple decision to answer a distress call. 6 months ago, he had been a forgotten transport captain making routine supply runs. Now he was being asked to help, lead the defense of galactic civilization. Admiral, the crew and I would be honored to serve. Excellent, Captain. There is one more thing. The task force will be commanded by Admiral Thexaval, recently promoted from his position as strategic advisor. He specifically requested your participation. Lee smiled. The proud Vorland commander had learned human tactics so well that he was now teaching them to others. It was proof that the lessons of Kronos had truly taken hold throughout the galaxy. An hour later, Lee stood on the bridge of the new Federation cruiser Determination as it prepared to depart for the Galactic Rim. His crew had their old stations back, but now they were surrounded by officers from a dozen species, all trained in human tactical methods. "Captain," Sora called from her engineering station. "All systems show ready. The fleet is prepared to depart. Minho, set course for the distress signal coordinates. Course laid in, Captain." "All ships, this is Captain Lee," he announced over the fleet communication system. "We are heading into unknown danger to help people we have never met. This is what the galaxy does now. This is what we have always done. Let us show the universe that when civilization is threatened, we stand together." As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, Lee reflected on how much had changed since that day when the Persistence first received a distress call from the Vorland research station. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not by becoming more like other species, but by showing other species the value of thinking differently. The stars outside the bridge window looked the same as always, but Lee knew that everything had changed. The galaxy was no longer a place where only the most advanced species held power. It was a place where every being could contribute their unique strengths to the common good. And somewhere out there, beyond the edge of known space, another impossible challenge was waiting for impossible solutions. Lee Dae-ho and his crew were ready to face it, because that was what humans did. They answered the call when others needed help, and they never gave up even when everyone said they should.